Welcome back, everyone. It's Eric from Rare Candy here. Today we are back with another Darkness Ablaze deck profile for the post-rotation format. And today we're going to be taking a look at the very hyped new Centiskorch VMAX. Definitely one of the more anticipated new VMAXs in the set. Even saw some people in the comment section of our recent videos requesting it, so this is what we are going to be showing off today. And if you guys do want to see some games with Centiskorch VMAX, in the next day or so we will have a video posted showing off this deck in action, so I'll have a link down below in the description if you guys want to check that out when it does go live. And just one more quick plug too, our Stage 2 patrons over at patreon.com/rarecandytcg actually had early access to this list like I think 4 days in advance. So if you guys want to check us out over there and get some exclusive and also early content, I'll have a link down below in the description if you guys want to learn more about that. But getting into the actual deck profile we have here today, we have 4 copies of the Volcanion from Broken Bonds. Definitely, I think, the best sort of starter Pokemon in fire decks for the post-rotation format. I've had Jirachi in a couple of my different like Welder-based decks. Really have not been liking it quite as much as the heavy Volcanion count that we see here. So that's what we are going to be trying to lead the game with. Mainly for that Flare Starter attack, of course, for a Fire Energy, we search our deck for a Fire Energy and attach it to one of our Pokemon. But if it's our first turn going second, then we can actually search for 3 Fire Energies, which is really good because Centiskorch has like a 40 times damage multiplier, so that effectively is going to give you plus 120 damage with your Centiskorches on following turns. That's really nice. High Heat Blast, also not a horrible attack. For 2 fire, does 50 plus 60 more if you have at least 4 fire energy in play. So sometimes that can be nice, just attacking with like a 1 prizer, but most of the time we're using Volcanion for the Flare Starter attack. Up next from there though, getting into our Centiskorch, we have 3 of the Centiskorch V here. Centiskorch V is okay. There's not a whole lot to really say, but I actually do like the first attack on it in particular. So for 1 fire energy, you do 20 damage, and if you want, you can discard a fire energy attached to Centiskorch V, and discard an energy attached to the opponent's active as well. So the discard effect off your own Centiskorch, really not a big deal because we can actually get those energies back with the VMAX. But also, you know, if we're having a slow start, sometimes this can buy you an extra turn. Think of something like ADP where they need 2 manual attachments to get up and running, you know, or Dragapult VMAX, or even Eternatus as well. Sometimes getting rid of that energy can be the extra turn that you need to get set up. So kind of an okay attack. The other attack is just 4 for 180, not that great. But of course, the main attacker of the deck that we have here is going to be the Centiskorch VMAX. So Centiskorch VMAX, 320 HP, so kind of average for a VMAX right now. But it has just 1 attack here for 2 colorless energy, does 40 plus 40 more for each fire energy we have on Centiskorch. And then after we calculate our damage, we can attach a fire energy from discard to Centiskorch as well, which is really cool. So basically, we're just trying to ramp up this damage, get a ton of energy on Centiskorch, and just try to like one-shot everything in our path. So if we have 7 energies on Centiskorch, that's going to basically knock out everything in the format. You know, you're going to be a little bit shy of one-shotting an Eternatus. You'll need that 8th energy, unfortunately. But generally speaking, as Centiskorch, it's going to be an absolute monster. If your opponent is having a slow start and they can't deal with this guy quickly, then you're just going to kind of run them over because you're just going to be snowballing energy turn after turn on this thing. So yeah, just trying to hit like a truck with this Centiskorch here. Up next, though, we have some support Pokemon. We have 2 copies of Dedenne GX. For that Dedenne changeability, we discard our hand and draw 6, but of course, we can't use more than 1 of these abilities in a turn. And for that reason, instead of playing like a 3rd Dedenne, we're going to be playing 1 copy of the new Crobat V from Darkness Ablaze as well. So Crobat's kind of cool because, much like with Dedenne, you're only limited to 1 of these abilities per turn, but with Crobat, you draw until you have 6. So sometimes this is nice. If you actually don't want a Dedenne change, you can quick ball for Crobat instead. Like maybe let's say you have a Centiskorch VMAX in hand and you don't want to discard it, you can use Crobat instead. But also, Crobat and Dedenne are both cool because if you play 1, you can't play, you know, like a second Dedenne, but you can go for a Crobat instead to keep digging through your deck. So Crobat V, obviously, fantastic new card we're getting from the new Darkness Ablaze set. Up next from there, though, we have one copy of Eldegoss V back from Rebel Clash. Eldegoss, been a big fan of this in basically any Welder variant, but of course has another one of these strong coming into play abilities. Whenever you bench it from your hand, you get a supporter card from your discard and put it into your hand. So kind of like the old Versus Seeker, but just on an ability here. So most notably, this is going to be good at getting those Welders back whenever we need them, or Boss's Orders as well to maybe close out a game. Then from there, we have one copy of Heatran GX to round out our Pokemon line. Heatran GX, I really do like in this deck for a couple of reasons. So it's a 2-prizer instead of a 3-prizer, but it also still has that big one-hit knockout potential in the form of its GX attack. So it does 50 times the amount of fire energies that are attached to it. So really nice if we want to just nuke something, but we don't want to give up 3 prizes. Heatran can be kind of nice in those sort of instances. Heatran's ability also really good whenever it's your turn and it becomes your active, then you can move any other fire energies in play to your Heatran. And naturally, we want a ton of energies in play with Centiskorch already, so I think there's some natural synergy between both these attackers. But that's going to round out our Pokemon line in the deck, guys. Going on to our trainer cards, we have 4 copies of Welder. So of course, Welder is a staple of all of our fire decks these days. You attach up to 2 fire energies from hand, draw 3 cards. So between this and our attachment for turn, that's basically a plus 120 for our Centiskorch VMAX that we have here. Obviously, the best way we can accelerate fire energies in the game right now. So, if you are, let's say you're going, on your first turn, you attach energy to Volcanion, you Welder 2 energies to your Centiskorch V. That's 2 energies, then 3 from Flare Starter. You have 5. Then next turn, you can get up to 8 energies on the second turn of the game on your Centiskorch VMAX and start taking big one-hit knockouts. So you can really easily see, thanks to Welder and the Volcanion, how your energies can sort of just snowball. Up next from there, we have 3 copies of Professor's Research in the deck as well. Discard your hand and draw 7. A lot of times, you actually don't even need to Welder on turn 1 with a deck like this. We really just want to find Volcanion, get it into the active spot, and get a Centiskorch V on the bench. That way we can use Flare Starter. So a nice other turn 1 option for the deck if we need to. We're also not playing like a Jirachi engine or anything like that. So we do need some extra ways at drawing cards and finding specific cards in our deck. So Research is going to help out with that. And then to round out our supporter cards, we have 2 copies of Boss's Orders as well, just to choose what we want to take knockouts on. Of course, we switch our opponents active with one of their bench Pokemon. A lot of times we're going to be trying to play Welder on most turns, so I kind of like the lower count of Boss's Orders in this deck, just because we're not going to have as many turns we can use it as opposed to most decks because we want to Welder so often. But the 2 count seems like a sweet spot, especially since we have the Eldegoss V to potentially reuse them if we do have to discard them. Up next, we have 2 copies of Giant Hearth in the deck. Definitely going to be kind of our primary stadium we're playing here. We discard a card from our hand and search our deck for 2 fires. And so obviously that's good. We can Welder both those down and then maybe attach another for turn. So just going to help with our Welder consistency in the deck. Up next from there, though, we have 1 copy of the Wondrous Labyrinth Prism Star. Definitely a really cool inclusion. I think it makes a lot of sense in this deck. It's been really sort of an MVP in the deck in terms of my testing with this so far as well. But the Stadium card and the attack cost of non-fairy Pokemon are increased by a colorless energy. So that's going to be a really big problem for a lot of decks to overcome. And with Centiskorch VMAX, just having that base attack cost of 2, you're always going to be having a lot more energy than that on Centiskorch. So it doesn't even really affect your side of the board, which is really nice. You just have to be careful about playing it turn 1 because, of course, you do want to Flare Starter, and that will make it a little bit tougher on your deck to Flare Starter if you do play that down very early on in the game. Next up, we have 4 copies of Quick Ball, of course, the best sort of consistency, Pokemon search card we have in the format. We discard a card from our hand, search our deck for a basic, put into our hand. We have a ton of Pokemon with these strong coming into play abilities, so Quick Ball is good at those. That being said, we are playing 4 copies of Pokemon Communication as well. We put a Pokemon from our hand back into our deck, get a different one. Pokemon Communication is kind of awkward in some of these VMAX decks because, we're only playing, 16-ish Pokemon, something like that. So a lot of times we might not have a Pokemon put back into our deck, but it's an unfortunately necessary evil just because we need a way to be able to search out our Centiskorch VMAX. And also, I do like this probably better than Evolution Incense just because it does give us the flexibility of grabbing some of these other basic Pokemon. A lot of times I found I'm going to have to Dedenne my hand away, but if I have a Centiskorch VMAX and a Communication, I can sort of use this actually to protect some of my Pokemon whenever I have to discard my hand. So playing the copies of communication just help find our VMAXs a little bit easier. Up next from there, we have 4 copies of Switch in the deck as well. This deck is all about trying to get that turn 1 flare starter, and so to do that, we do need some copies of Switch to more easily maneuver our board around. Everything has kind of a big retreat cost. Heatran and Centiskorch both have a 3 retreat, if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, we need these to be able to find our Volk, get that into the active spot ASAP. Up next from there, we do have 4 copies of Turbo Patch. This is actually an inclusion I really haven't seen many people talk about just yet. I think a lot of people have been going more, down more of a defensive route with the Centiskorch deck, which I also do like, by the way. But I wanted to show off this variant I've been kind of messing with because I think there's actually something here with Turbo Patch. It's a new item from Darkness Ablaze, and we flip a coin of heads, attach a basic energy from discard to one of our non-GX basic Pokemon. So of course, we do want to play these before we actually evolve, but we have a lot of ways that we're discarding energy with Giant Hearth, Quick Ball, our Dedenes, Research. So getting energy in the discard, really not going to be hard with this deck whatsoever. But if we can get an extra energy or 2 into play before we evolve, that's actually really big because if you flip heads, that's basically a plus 40 damage for the rest of the lifespan of your Centiskorch. So that's really nice. And also in the case of Heatran, it doesn't even matter where the energies go. Because when Heatran moves to the active spot, it takes all those energies, puts them on itself anyways. So yeah, I've actually really been liking Turbo Patch. I know the fact that we're playing a VMAX kind of makes it, I think, questionable at first glance, but it's actually been working out surprisingly well, and it's going to help us just be more aggressive. I really just want to steamroll our opponent. I don't want to two-shot them basically ever with the Centiskorch. So Turbo Patch is another way we can sort of expedite that process and ensure that we can get a ton of energy into play, especially turns also where we can't welder, where we might have to research, but we still need energy in play. Turbo Patch is another way we can sort of, mitigate the effects of not being able to play a welder on some turns. Up next from there, we have 2 copies of Fire Crystal in the deck. So Fire Crystal, of course, we get 3 fire energies from discard, put them back into our hand. You guys see the synergy. We welder 2 of them back down, then attach the other for turn, and we're going to be good to go. And then up next from there, we have 1 copy of Reset Stamp to round out our list here for our trainer cards. We make our opponent shuffle their hand back into their deck and draw equal to the amount of prize cards they have remaining. So ideally, once they knock out a Centiskorch, we can maybe hit them with a Reset Stamp, disrupt them a little bit. We don't play Marnie or anything like that in this list, so that's one reason I did want Reset Stamp. If you were to ever maybe cut a research for a Marnie, maybe you could make the argument not to play Reset Stamp, but right now with no other hand disruption, I did want to include that in the list. So from there, going on to our energy cards, in terms of basic energies, we are going to be playing 12 counts of fire energy in total here. So good bit. That's, I think, kind of a sort of an average amount for like our welder based decks that are going to be running around. That ensures we basically always have enough to consistently make use of our welders with. But from there, we also have 2 copies of the new Heat Fire energy as well. Heat Fire energy, of course, is a new special energy from Darkness Ablaze. It provides fire energy, but if it's attached to a fire Pokemon, they get plus 20 HP. So like I said, when talking about Turbo Patch, I think a lot of people are considering more like tanky sort of variants of Centiskorch. And while we're going a more aggressive route, I still like the couple copies of Heat Fire energy. It's actually thrown off the math for a couple matchups I've been playing against here and there. So I actually really have been liking that. We don't want to play too many copies though, just because it does start to eat into our welder consistency here. And so you don't want a hand where you have like a Heat Fire energy and a regular fire energy and you're only accelerating one. You want to sort of avoid that. So I'd probably play no more than 3 in this list, but right now 2 kind of feels like a nice little sweet spot, considering we're not really going all in on like the tanking sort of options. But with that being said, though, that is going to be our look at the Centiskorch VMAX deck. I do have to say this has actually been doing the best out of all of the new fire Pokemon I've been experimenting with Darkness Ablaze. Really been liking Centiskorch VMAX. This deck hits like a truck. And like I said, if your opponent really doesn't deal with Centiskorch quickly, I mean, you're just going to run over your opponent. It puts on so much pressure, they really can't afford to have like a really slow start, I think. But overall, I hope you guys did enjoy a look at this deck profile. Of course, if you did, feel free to like and subscribe, and also consider supporting this channel as well by becoming a patron at patreon.com/rarecandytcg, or by picking up some merch from our online store at rarecandytcg.com. It would mean a lot. But as always, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.